All right, so let's talk about a guy who looked at the official rule book for music, the one that had worked for centuries, and basically decided to set it on fire.
You know that feeling, right? When you're playing a game or listening to a song and the music just sounds off, kind of broken, like a glitch or a corrupted audio file. It's that sound that makes you take your headphones off and go, wait, what was that?
Well, what if that weird, glitchy sound wasn't a mistake at all? What if a composer made it sound like that on purpose to make you feel something totally new? Well, that composer's name was Arnold Schoenberg, and he completely changed the game.
Now, to really get how Schoenberg broke music, we first have to understand the world he came from. We gotta look at music's default settings.
For hundreds of years, pretty much all music ran on this one operating system called tonality. Think of it like a video game. You've got your home base, right? A safe zone. No matter how crazy the mission gets, you always know you can go back to that familiar spot. In music, that's the main key. It makes a song feel finished and satisfying. And here's the wild part. Schoenberg knew these rules better than anyone. He was born in Vienna back in 1874 and pretty much taught himself everything by studying the absolute legends, guys like Wagner and Brahms. And his early music, totally normal. It followed all the rules. It's like he beat the game on the hardest difficulty before he decided to hack it and rewrite the entire code. But just mastering the game wasn't enough for him. He started asking this really dangerous question. What happens if we just delete the safe zone? What if there's no home for the music to go back to, ever? And that question led him to his big, radical idea, atonality. If tonality is music with a home base, atonality is music that's just always out on the adventure. There's no main key to come back to. It's like a movie that's all suspense all the time, and it just never ends. Schoenberg called this idea the emancipation of dissonance. Now, dissonance is just a fancy word for those notes that sound kind of tense or clashing. In the old system, they were like the bad guys that the hero had to defeat. Schoenberg just said, nope, he let them loose. He believed those tense sounds could be the heroes of the story. So you can see the huge difference, right? The old way has that cozy home base. The new way is lost in the woods. The old way has to fix those tense notes. The new way lets him run free. The whole vibe of music shifted from feeling comfortable and safe to feeling tense and totally unpredictable. It was kind of the perfect soundtrack for all the complex, messy feelings of the modern world, like anxiety. So, how did he actually do this without it just becoming total noise? Well, once you throw out the old rulebook, you kind of need a new one. So, Schoenberg basically hacked music with a brand new system of his own. And you're probably thinking exactly this. I mean, if there's no home key, isn't it all just going to sound like a cat walking on a piano? Just a bunch of random noise? It's a really good question. But Schoenberg wasn't about chaos at all. He was about creating a new kind of order. And to control all those newly freed sounds, he invented this super logical, super strict system called the 12-tone technique. And the code is actually pretty simple. First, you line up all 12 notes of the scale in any order you want. That becomes your tone row. Then, the big rule is, you have to play through all 12 of those notes before you're allowed to start the row again. No repeats, you can't play a note again until all 11 others have had their turn. The result is kind of genius. It makes it impossible for any one note to sound more important than the others. No single note can ever become that home base. It's basically musical democracy, where every single note is treated as an equal. So why are we talking about some guy who was writing kind of weird music over 100 years ago? Because whether you know it or not, his legacy is everywhere. Now, his music was definitely not an instant hit, not even close. Most audiences thought it was just plain bizarre. Critics were totally split. But for the composers who came after him, his influence was absolutely massive. He basically opened up a whole new world for music to explore. So his final score is really impressive. He didn't just change modern classical music forever, he also taught other composers who became legends. He eventually fled Europe and came to the US, where he kept spreading his ideas. And maybe the coolest part for us is that his techniques for creating tension and suspense are used all the time in movies and video games. You know that creepy, unsettling music in a horror film or a boss battle? You can thank Schoenberg for giving composers the tools to make that happen. And I think that's the biggest takeaway here. Schoenberg proved that you have to know the rules perfectly before you can break them in a way that actually matters.
He wasn't just messing around. He was a master of the old system, and that's what gave him the power to invent a new one. And that kind of leaves us with one final question. Schoenberg rewrote the rules for music. So it makes you wonder, what are the default settings in our world today? In the music we listen to, the games we play, the tech we use, what rules are just sitting there waiting for a new rebel to come along, understand them perfectly, and then change everything?